Hey there, sports fans. It's Nathan, your host for another salty serving of youth baseball on the Salty Sports Podcast.
Here with part two with Kyle Bryant, youth league coach. Has been with this kid from little league all the way up to high school now. So without further ado, here's Kyle with part two.
You kind of hit on this too, but what's your best advice to young coaches just starting out?
Best advice is be organized. A lot of your parents are going to come and watch practice because they're not going to leave their kids there. But if you're not organized, your practices are very hard to run. Your kids kind of get they stop paying attention a lot faster. They don't understand your message because you're kind of all over the place. But if you have a strategic plan in place, and it can be very basic, and I'm big on time management. Like, we're going to do this for about 5-10 minutes, then we're moving on to the next one, because kids get bored. You can't take, and don't me wrong, I've been I can say I'm probably the worst at it. I'll put kids out there to work on scenarios, and I'll lose track of time because I'm sitting there hitting ground balls, trying to, hey, we're going to second base. Hey, we're going to first base. And, you've got 9, 10, 11 kids out there. They're just standing in one spot. And you got 9 other kids who didn't touch a baseball that rep.
Yeah.
So being organized and having split practices, because infield comes with me, outfield goes with an assistant, or, hey, we're going to work, these guys with this person, or, outfielders, hey, you go hit for a little bit, I'm going to work with infield, and we'll swap, outfielders to infielders and infielders to outfielders, because, you've got to be organized with what you're doing. All your assistant coaches have to be on the same page with you. I highly suggest a group text with your assistant coaches, because, that way things can be talked about. Not everybody's going to see eye to eye, and that's okay. I don't see eye to eye with everybody I coach with, but we talk about it and go, well, what can we come to a compromise, and what's the best way to teach this to the kids? I have an open book forum with my assistant coaches. Hey, tell me what you think. Did I screw up? But at the same time, I'm going to come to you and to my assistant coaches and go, hey, look, that wasn't a good idea. That's not how I want, how I want to do things. I mean, at the end of the day, as a head coach, you've got the end-all be-all say, but you have to have an open book relationship with your assistant coaches and your parents. I mean, they've got to come back and forth and talk to them, but be organized.
Well, let's ask another question to follow up with that. What does a good practice look like to you?
Good practice is, depending on the level of your kids and where you're at and the teaching the game. Like, if you're literally just trying to teach ground balls and hitting in that situation, or if you're into the more scenarios or picks, and because you got to think youth baseball is from literally now 5 years old to 14. So, I mean, you got 9 years difference. I've been a part of 1-hour practices, and I've been a part of 3-hour practices. So I've seen both sides of it, but as long as you have a good plan of individual stuff, and which means like you've got infield work, you got outfield work working separately. You've got pitchers working on certain things separately. You got catchers working on things separately. Don't get me wrong, I know it's hard to have that many coaches on the field, so you have to intertwine a lot. But have individual work for a certain amount of time. Everything's got to be time-based, because if not, you kind of run over and you don't get everything in that you need to work on, because you can only have so many practices a week. So everything's got to be time managed. To me, practices need to be progressive. And when I mean progressive, you need to, hey, we're going to start with leadoffs. And then you work from leadoff to reading a dirt ball from the pitcher to the catcher. I mean, you can work a lot of different things with one drill. Your pitcher can work on his pitching to the catcher. Catcher can work on his back picks with the leader and the first baseman, with the leadoff guy and the first baseman. I mean, you can put a lot of guys in using multiple with a drill. You just have to have that kids doing certain jobs for that person and rotate. It's a big rotation. So between your catchers, pitchers, a first baseman, and runners, and a second baseman or shortstop, which can be almost 90% of your team.
Yeah.
You can run. You can have your pitchers working on pitches or picks to first base. Then you can work on rundowns off that same situation, and you can work on throw downs or back picks with your catcher, or blocking with your catcher. Of course, you tell your pitcher, hey, I want you to throw in the dirt. That way, your base runner can work on dirt ball reads, or if he needs to get back, or secondary leads. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can work on in a progressive form that makes it fun. Like, hey, yeah, we're working on basics, but by the end of your practice, you're working on a very complicated, high-level baseball scenario. And at the end of your baseball practice, I'm a big believer of teaching competition.
Yeah.
I think competition's a big thing with travel ball and youth sports. I think you should have a game of some type to create that competitive atmosphere, because that's if they didn't keep score, what's the point? It's kind of, it's that deal is, if you're keeping score, there's a winner and loser. Well, you have to learn how to compete.
Yeah.
And so I think a competition game at the end of every practice, one, it's fun, and two, it teaches you how to compete, and it builds camaraderie with your team. I mean,
yeah,
the kids start learning on, that this kid's working hard and he's going to get after it. I want to be a part of that. So.
Yeah, those are all good things. I think, my cardinal sin for practices, like, you can't be standing around. But then again, like you said, sometimes, like, if you have to work on a scenario, let's say you really screwed up a certain situation and you have to work on that scenario, there's going to be kids standing around for a little bit. But so no, there's sometimes it's just necessary. But as little as you can do that, like, don't have them standing around. And I agree with all the stuff you're saying. I think one underlying thing is, like, need to be prepared, organized and prepared. Like, I read a quote. This is a coach from Huntington Beach, California, high school coach. Said he spends 90 minutes to 2 hours every day planning his practice.
That's a lot.
That was mind blowing to me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
For youth coaches, if you did it 10 minutes, you're in the 90 percentile, I believe.
Oh, 100%.
Just
100%.
do, like, have something on a notebook paper, text it to your assistant coaches, but have a plan. Don't get to the field and say, well, let's see.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've showed up to the field with not being having a plan in place and going, but it, you feel it too when you get there as a coach, going, man, I just let these kids down. I don't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
This practice is not going to be very good. And the worst thing you can do is feel like you're wasting everybody's time as a coach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the worst feeling in the world. But just being prepared, having a plan, and it can be the most basic plan ever. But I think if you have a plan, it builds on what you're trying to do. The kids have fun with it, and they don't get bored. I mean, like, it kind of goes back to the beginning of the conversation, is if you're getting kids to come back and want to play for you next year, or coming back to play the sport next year, you're winning. Yeah. You're winning as a coach. In a general consensus of youth sports now, when you get to the more elite stuff, yeah, it's different. But just be prepared, have a plan, be mindful of time, especially parents' time. That's another big situation. Like I said, I've been a part of the 3-hour practices. It gets to be out there for a long time, but there's a lot of talking points in baseball. I mean, as much as you've got to work drills, there's a ton of talking in baseball and a ton of communication in baseball that has to be done, because you're teaching. I mean, it's almost like class, but you're on a baseball field.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you this: if you had to start over with your kid at 6, which you're getting to, what would you do baseball wise with him? What are you doing with your son?
So, I've been told about a lot of guys, because as our older ones are going through into their high school career, they're getting close to the recruiting process for college, right? Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a lot of guys who played college ball, a lot of guys who've in the recruiting process, or been recruited and they're signed up to go play college ball, and the parents play catch as much as you can. I think how a lot of recruiters are looking at kids now. There's a lot of metrics out there that you see in showcase stuff, but watching a kid how he plays catch and how he plays catch with a partner, if he takes it serious, if he's goofing off, the way he presents a glove, the way he throws, just playing catch, because that's the most basic thing you can do in baseball is playing catch. I think if you learn how to be a master of playing catch, it will take you a long ways in baseball. You know, playing catch is crucial. I've heard of guys literally getting recruited and offered based on the way they prepare themselves to play the game, and a lot of that starts with playing catch.
Okay, so I like that. Expand on that. What are they looking for? What do they want to see?
Having intent, playing catch with a purpose, I think is what a lot of people hear these days is playing catch with a purpose. You know, you're trying to hit your partner in the chest. You're not being lazy of trying to move your feet. You understand that catch is preparing you to play the game, right? So you start at a, short distance and you bring yourself out, and then you bring yourself back in with, hard pull downs and stuff of that sort. But you have a plan, just like as a coach, as a player, you have a plan of how I'm getting prepared to play the game, and playing catch a certain way, I think, goes a long ways. So they're looking for flow. You're going to hear, and it's become more prominent now. I know you do a lot of baseball stuff and listen to a lot of seminars and that sort of thing, but the big thing I've been listening to lately, being an athlete's a big thing in baseball. I think you probably know this better than I do. One of the pro teams right now, most of the guys that play in the field were shortstops at one point in their life.
Yeah.
And they're playing outfield. But usually when you have a shortstop on a baseball field in youth sports, he's your most athletic kid on the baseball team.
Yeah, he can play anywhere.
And so, but I guarantee you the kid who's playing shortstop probably plays catch the best.
Yeah, good thought.
So playing catch is huge. I think it shows a lot about a player, how they present themselves, how they handle themselves in a game. I think catch is the number one thing that a kid needs to learn how to do, and have fun with it too. But have an intent, have a purpose with playing catch.
Okay. So what drills have you liked and found to be most beneficial?
So I'm real basic when it comes to drills. There's a ton of drills out there. There's some crazy ones, but most important drills I think is Aussies for glove work. I think every kid needs to learn how to do Aussies. One, you don't really have to have a whole lot to do. You can literally do it without a glove. Tee work. I'm real big on tee work with just your basic swing. Some people call them Happy Gilmores. We call them step-in drills.
Yeah.
We do the 45 drill where it works on hips. We do a lot of oppo drills off tees. Another big one I'm a big fan of is split grip baseball swings off the tee. And then from there you go to soft toss. Again, it's a progressive style practice, right? You work tee work, then you go to soft toss, and then if you get to overhand throws or a machine, then that's what you get to. But Aussies and tee work are my biggest, my most favorite drills.
Okay.
I think you can do just about anything beneficial off those.
All right. Let me ask you a few more questions. Facility travel teams versus local travel teams. Like, what are the pros and cons of each of those? Local travel team meaning like, you're selected for all-stars and that group stays together and goes and plays tournaments, as opposed to you go to a facility and they're pulling in people from 45 minutes away.
So the biggest thing with an independent travel ball team, which would be like your all-star teams or groups that were playing as an all-star team and pulled out from a league or independent there. Probably the biggest pro of that is financial cost. It's not as expensive to play as an independent baseball team than it is to play for such as a facility team or national stuff. The con to that is you're usually going to have 99% of the time you're going to have a dad head coach 99% of the time. So if you get into the situation of possibly seeing daddy ball, and everybody knows what daddy ball is when it comes to youth sports. It's a big favoritism towards one kid. Obviously, it's going to be the coach's kid. That's a con to independent travel ball teams. Facility teams, the pros, not always. The one I went to, I won't give names. We had a non-biased head coach. Sometimes we're lucky enough to have a non-dad assistant coach. But the con of all that is you're paying for it. You're paying a lot more. You can pay anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 a year in just facility costs. It does get expensive. You are usually traveling further to go practice. At one point, I believe we were practicing an hour away from my house. I was a taxi driver for a lot of kids. Honestly, I would pick up 3 to 4 kids, and I would drive an hour away for a practice. And we even had a kid on our team who was driving 2 hours for practice and never missed a practice. But another pro of the facility stuff is you do have a place to go practice when it rains. You do have nicer things in a facility than you would, with a non-independent team or an independent team that has, probably just a field to practice on and maybe a small shop that has a cage in it, where facilities have, more equipment, more cages, that sort of thing. And then the grand beast of them all, is the national thing, which we did for a year and a year and a half, technically. So the big thing with national stuff, the pro is you are more seen. Your kid is out there getting, whether it be social media hype or you're somehow getting in front of a college coach here and there, as there might be a 18U tournament at the same time. You kind of get put on a pedestal in a sense. I hate saying that way, but it does happen. I'm not just speaking for my kid because he was never put on a pedestal for the national stuff, but I've seen national kids put on pedestals, and it can make and break kids. But at the same time, with the national stuff, there's no camaraderie with the team. You literally show up and you're going to play with them on the weekends.
Yeah, no practices.
There's no practices, so you have to get it in on your own. You're not going to have a dad coach in national team stuff because you've got guys who are running these national programs and they are from all over the place. We've played with guys who are for teams that are based out of Memphis, teams that are based out of Texas, a team that was out of New Jersey. The national, they're local here to us, but they also have a national program. They're based out of Nebraska. We've played with a lot of different national guys, but it's you just see them, and a lot of communications just through the phone or text or email, and they tell you when and where to be there, and you show up, pay money, and the con of that is it's really expensive.
And the teams is like, it's expensive, but like you can handle it. It's the dadgum hotels and airplanes, all these places that'll put you under.
I don't even want to think about how much money our family spent this past year on youth baseball. I've had people call me crazy and, nuts and this and that. Would I do it again? Absolutely, if my kid wants to.
Yeah.
Now, it's a big want to. Now, I'll tell you this, I've learned a lot with the national stuff. It's not meant for everybody. Um, a lot of the kids you're playing against on the national level are very elite. And I don't mean just in ability, their build. I mean, my oldest stepson's not the biggest kid. Throws decent for a lefty. I mean, he's low 80s, high 70s, low 80s as a 14, 15-year-old. But, I mean, there's kids now throwing low 90s and that are 6'3", 230-pound 15-year-olds. That's a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
And, those are some big kids. But it teaches you how to compete as a pro for national stuff. It teaches you how to compete at the big level. A lot of those kids that you face at that stuff, you're going to see play at the college level at some way or fashion.
And you have some that are going to skip the college level too.
Yeah. I mean, there's kids there that they're committed. They'll get drafted out of high school. I got to watch a guy a couple years ago, name of Slade Caldwell, played for a high school team here in Arkansas, and he played showcase baseball for somebody out in Memphis. I forget the team. But I watched him play a state championship game a couple years ago, and I knew then as he was a junior, wasn't even a senior yet in high school. I looked at the guy I was coaching him at the time. I said, that guy will never see a campus. Like the way he played, the way he was built, his speed, it was just, he was a center fielder for the team. There was a shot hit to the right center field, area on the warning track, which most high school kids at the time won't make the play, and he made it look like a routine fly ball. And the way he hit, it's just, there's those anomaly kids, right? There's those kids that just are fully gifted and have the ability and have the build. But on the backside of that, what they do is they work hard. They work day in, day out, and that's what they want to do with their life. And it starts at an early age when it comes back to youth sports, like we talk about, and it's what kind of culture you want to bring to your kid. What kind of culture is your kid wanting to have? It's national stuff has taught me a lot. And I know not every kid. I saw kids on national teams that don't belong on national teams. I saw kids at the travel ball local area that I think need to play more competitive ball. I think they needed to go see what they're really made of versus being comfortable. You hear the term, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's true in baseball.
Yeah.
I think you grow more that way. But yeah, it's everything is family oriented. I say oriented. Everything is independent per family. What your family wants to do, what they can do, from a baseball standpoint, a financial standpoint. When you get to the national thing, I don't take. I took a lot away from this past year with the national stuff. Is it for everybody? No. But I do think a lot of kids should get the chance to try it.
Yeah.
I think they should ought to see what their kid's made out of. Because, don't get me wrong, you can throw a lot of money at baseball. You really can. And some of the guys and parents, and I'll get hit at this at some way or form, but parents can throw a lot of money at baseball, and their kid not be very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's families who don't have, a lot of they're not blessed on the financial side, but their kid is an absolute beast on the baseball field. And to me, I think there should be ways to find those kids opportunities to play at high levels when they are not financially, have the financial ability to.
And I think college coaches will tell you, like, all the big colleges in Arkansas, they know every high school coach in the state, and there's
Oh, yeah.
got to be one slip through the cracks of the high school because they'll talk to them, on a weekly basis. Especially the big high schools. But I mean, there's more about the national travel ball. I mean, there's also about experiences with your kid and I don't know. I paid a lot for the one we went to, but man, seeing the smile on my kid's face the first time he walked through an airport with baseball equipment, it was something.
It's
Like getting
cool.
somebody.
It's a cool, yeah, it's really cool. Don't get me wrong. You're paying for an experience for your kid. I mean, you are, um, but it's an experience that not a lot of kids will ever get to do. I mean, I know Austin's played a little bit more than your
Yeah,
son has, and but Austin has probably played in more and nicer ballparks than most kids will ever see in their entire life.
yeah, hundred
And
percent.
it's a great experience for him, and he competed well, and he can do it. I just believe there's a lot more kids out there that can do it that just get overlooked because they didn't sign up for the right team or didn't try out for the right team or
Or
just
had a
didn't
coach
find
you
it.
didn't mesh with.
You're right, and it all kind of comes back to what are your goals with your kid to play baseball, and that don't get me wrong, there's kids that are going to be really really good at 7, 8, 9. And then when they get 12, 13, 14, they may be really, really good or they may never got better than the age of 9. It
Yeah,
just depends. But
yeah,
um, I think national stuff's good. I think it can get overrated, some of the national things.
hmm
Um, I don't believe all the metrics they look at pertain to how a kid can play baseball. I mean, I've seen guys who have an elite exit velocity, can throw as hard as they want to, like in the upper 80s, 90s.
yeah,
But if they can't hit the strike zone as a pitcher,
yeah.
it don't matter. It don't matter how hard you throw. So
hmm
there's there's the metric system when it comes to the showcase stuff, and you like 13 and 14, you can start doing showcase metrics, right? Um,
Yeah,
for the national level, where the big organizations, and you see that stuff.
yeah.
But it doesn't always pertain to how a kid can play baseball. It really doesn't. I mean, I've seen some of the smallest kids out there on a field who have the best flow, the most athletic, and you make plays that you're like, the kid looks like Javier Baez at 13, like,
Yeah.
and then so
And you mentioned the
it's
numbers and people can be mad at the showcase things, but like for me, I wanted to go to one because at like Perfect Game Showcase, I think they run a really good showcase, a really really well run. You're going to pay
yeah,
for it. It's about $500 for a weekend to go to one of these, but you're going to do a workout. You're going to get your metrics, meaning my son's a catcher. We got his pop time. We got his exit velo when he's hitting, his arm speed, all kinds of stuff like that. Then they have a professional scout write a little blurb about your son. Now, is it
mm-hmm,
probably is it skewed positively? Absolutely, right. I've seen guys
100%.
with really low scores that, really good student. He got a good knack of okay, it's a little positive, but it's not untrue. They're just spinning it in a really positive way, I feel like. And so
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and like those metrics, you can say like, man, this guy, he just gets a lot of outs when he's pitching. Well, if you throw 75 miles an hour and you're a senior, no one cares. And like, I wish they did, but they don't. And so if you don't, um, if you're not tracking those metrics, how do you know they're improving? And if you have big time goals, I mean, the bottom line is you got to throw hard. And
right now, right, yeah, right now's day and age, velo is everything, right?
Mhm.
That's what everyone gauges you on, from exit velo to your throwing velo, from outfield, your pitching velo. I mean, that's the name of the game right now.
Yeah.
I'm with you. As much as I don't think velo is everything. It sure does help because I mean
Well, and like
it's
we can think what we want to think. We may be right, but the decision makers aren't listening to us. Maybe they are listening to podcasts. Welcome, decision makers. But um, until they start paying for it, we can't stop training for it. They're
right.
paying for the velocity, and so like whether we love it or hate it, like we've got to we got to keep training for that until something changes, which I don't know how it would. Um,
I don't see it changing anytime soon.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
it's
I'm sorry.
It goes back to the old saying, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. It's velo. You know, there's the debate of, bat and hand speed in the pros versus college right now. And I know this is kind of off topic from the youth sports, but college kids right now have more bat speed than pros have bat speed right now. I've talked to a couple different guys on this. If you look at the overall general or average bat speed, college players have more bat speed than pro baseball players have. But when the pitcher's throwing anywhere from 8 to 10 more miles an hour harder, you don't have to have the bat speed as much because you start your load earlier, your timing's faster. But as long as you're getting, it's about contact at that point because it's kinetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different things in baseball. There's no perfect way for baseball. Like that's the glorious thing about baseball. There's so many ways to play it. There's so many ways to train for it. And it's all based on how a certain athlete is, right? Every athlete's different. They're all built different. They all have their different quirks about them. I've got Austin's a left-handed pitcher, but I think lefties are the most finicky people in the world. They're weird. They're different.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's just they are, but it's just I'll hate calling it a crapshoot because it is in it sometimes, but velo's here to stay. Whether it be exit velo, whether it be pitching velo, it's not going anywhere for a while. But if you can't throw strikes and you can't hit a fastball, what does it matter? You can hit an exit velo. What does it matter how hard you throw? So.
Yeah. Well, okay. So last question today. We kind of teased it earlier, but I'm just going to say it like this: how many pitches should a kid throw on a weekend?
It kind of goes back to what I was saying. It depends on the kid. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen Austin throw 120 pitches in a weekend in the same day.
Yeah.
And walk off the field okay. It's a little sore, but you're going to be sore. It's a full workout.
Now the Facebook expert would call you an idiot, and you should be in prison
fine.
for abusing your children.
That's okay. Come see what. I'll just tell the person, come see what Austin does when he's not on a baseball field.
I mean, that's a great point. Yeah. Go ahead. This is a good one.
Between bands and ball routines and weighted ball routine, and now that the guy that we work with, Marshall Denton, who's an ex-Razorback pitcher and worked for Tread Athletics, his knowledge is second to none, in my opinion. He's great. I listen intently to a lot of things he does and says to Austin. But a lot of hip mobility, a lot of things that just go into pitching in general. But it all depends on what the kid does. We've had the conversation of if your kid doesn't throw a baseball all week and he picks up a baseball on the weekend and throws 80 pitches on Saturday, okay, then he doesn't pitch on Sunday, and then he takes a whole week of not throwing a baseball and he tries to pick up a baseball on Saturday and throws another 80. To me, that's detrimental.
That's far worse than throwing 120 one day.
To me, that's terrible, because I'm a big believer, and I know he's kind of the bad guy of baseball, but Trevor Bauer, he throws all the time. I've seen his, I wouldn't say it's a documentary, but he's done a lot of YouTube stuff out there where, in high school, he went through every day. Now, every day you're not throwing 100 balls or 50 balls, or you've got light days, medium days, a full bullpen day, the back to light day. And then, of course, you're going to have a rest day somewhere. That you have to have rest. That's part of baseball.
Yeah.
But as long as you're preparing your body, your arm for what you need to do and what you can do on a weekend, I don't see anything wrong with 100 plus. Now, take the guys back in the, late 80s, early 90s, Noah and Ryan, those guys were throwing complete games and 150, pitch games. I mean,
well,
Noah and Ryan's
rumor I heard
crazy.
Hideo Nomo threw 200 pitch bullpens every day on his off days. That's
And see,
unbelievable. You know?
and people call that nuts or crazy, but
Yeah.
if his body's capable of doing those things,
Well, and we've talked about
it's
this, but like my thing is like they don't know what's causing these problems. If they
no,
knew, the pros would stop getting hurt. But we're just
yeah,
throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping to goodness they stick. And so it really drives me nuts with the Facebook experts wanting to, put a picture of Game Changer up there and say, look what idiot coaches is pitching this kid's 94 pitches. Like, boy, you
you
don't
know,
know. Like, we don't know. If we
yeah,
knew, the Dodgers wouldn't have a full pitching rotation on the on the injured reserve. You
yeah,
wouldn't have these epidemics if the 30 best organizations in the world on baseball on this idea of what makes a healthy arm. We don't know. I wish we did. And I think
no, I mean,
Alan Jenkins
and
had a good video a few weeks ago where he said like the amount of pitches you can throw is based on the conditioning of your arm. Like brilliant. Like that's probably well said. Now he would say the same thing. Can he guarantee you're going to be well conditioned and not get hurt? No. You're going to help.
yeah, I mean, uh, injuries sometimes just happen, right?
Yeah.
An ACL tear, uh, a groin pull, a hamstring tear, a bicep pull. I mean, injuries happen. You play sports.
Yeah.
You're putting
I
your
mean,
body in a stressful environment.
we had a kid
Uh,
tear his UCL on the football field the other day, right? Now his
yeah,
left arm, luckily, but I mean
yeah,
that kind of stuff happened. Was it because he overthrew his left arm? I guarantee you that.
yeah, because he's right-handed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, how do you explain certain things? There's no expert to me in this world that can tell you this kid can pitch this many pitches and this kid can only pitch that many pitches. There's no expert in the world that can tell you this or that. You can take your most highly educated guess at it, but if as long as you're preparing your body the best way you can prepare your body, and everybody's different, I think I think you have the best shot possible of not injuring yourself.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it just
And that's the best we can
there.
offer. We
Yeah.
can't guarantee it. That's the
Now
best we can offer.
there's now I will say this, and the other side of that is some of the injuries are caused due to mechanical form, and that's a whole nother deal. But I think as long as you are in the most anatomically best mechanical form that you can pitch, because I've seen some really rough pitching forms,
Yeah.
and I think as long as you can correct a lot of the mechanical issues where you take out as much stress out of the elbow or shoulder or arm in general that you can, then you're in pretty good shape as long as you're conditioned for it. But if you have terrible mechanics and you're trying to throw as hard as you can every pitch, I hate to say it, you're probably going to get injured
Yeah.
at some point. It may not happen for a couple years, but those couple years of building up of bad form and not being conditioned, to me, you'll eventually get hurt at some way or fashion.
Yeah.
But
Well
there's no
said.
right or wrong answer. I think it just comes down per athlete, and so
Yeah. Well, I think we could talk a little longer, but that's probably where we should cut it off today. But
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you being on. And any final thoughts from you?
No, well, yes, the make sure kids are having fun in baseball. You know, one of my favorite other sports or favorite movies that I didn't say. I love Moneyball to death, but the other favorite movie of mine is For Love of the Game, and not necessarily for the movie because I do love the movie, but just the name of the movie itself. You've got to teach for the love of the game and make it fun for youth coaches and youth players. Um, but be smart about it, have fun with it, and I think coaches can go a long way, and I think players can go a long way as long as they're in a good situation. But I do appreciate the invite and the opportunity to come speak with you and talk with you. I know we have a lot of conversations off this, but I think this opening up to other people listening, and maybe it will produce more conversations to have out in the open about youth sports in general. I think there's a big world for youth baseball, and it's not talked about as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like this content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Salty Sports 501 or visit us on our website at www.saltysports.org.